Hey girls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be the start of another weekly reading vlog. The past couple of vlogs that I have filmed have all been themed reading vlogs. You may not have noticed that because some of them are definitely going to be coming out after this vlog, but I have just been filming so many themed reading vlogs that it's time to take a step back and go back to my very mood reader roots and just film a reading vlog where I can read whatever I want and there's not a theme that I have to focus on or a specific genre, just, you know, picking up whatever books that I'm in the mood for reading. So that's exactly what we're going to do this week. It is Sunday, May 5th. I'm actually starting a weekly reading vlog on a Sunday. How exciting. But I am currently in the middle of, you know, some books that I'm still filming those themed reading vlogs. Don't get me wrong, but you won't see any of that in this vlog. But my reading output just might be a little bit different than my usual because I am also filming another vlog as well as this one. So we'll see how many books that I get to this week. But the first book that I'm going to be reading and that I'm 30 minutes into right now because I have it checked out as a Libby hold is First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. Like I mentioned before, 30 minutes into the audiobook. This is me and my mom's book club pick. We try and do a buddy read, if not every month, like every other month. So this was technically last month, but I had such a hard time getting my hands on a library copy. So I finally have it in my hands. She's already finished, I believe. So I want to finish this one up definitely this week so that I can, you know, talk about it with her. This is a thriller. It was one of Reese's book club picks and it's also, I feel like I've just seen this book everywhere. It's apparently such a twisty, turny, you know, jaw-dropping, on the edge of your seat thriller. So I've heard really good things. I've heard this is like crazy. So I'm intrigued to read this. 30 minutes in and I'm already kind of seeing like why a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, what is happening in this thriller? So I'm intrigued. I'll be reading that as my audiobook. And then of course, you know me, I have multiple books going on at all different times. So I will be picking up a physical book as well. And I have two main contenders, but again, don't take too much stock into these because I haven't started them yet. So because I haven't started them means that, you know, who knows in my next update what I'll be talking about. But I do want to get to Botanical Daughter by Noah Metlock soon. This one is a Frankenstein reimagining. So I've heard a lot of good things. The cover's absolutely gorgeous. And then another fun cover. This one's like a mystery horror as well. Rainbow Black by Maggie Thrash. This is about the Satanic Panic. It takes place in the 1990s. Again, you know, the cover is very like striking in a different way than a Botanical Daughter, but I love the simplicity of it. I love the neon pink little goat there. So yeah, I want to pick up one of these. These are like my priority TBRs, but I do also have to go to the library this week to return some holds and then also pick up some new books. So you never know. There could be a TBR disruptor in there. So I think what I'm going to do, a very impromptu, try a chapter of each of these and see which one grips me more and then start on that one. It's a very lazy Sunday. My partner is going to be watching, if I have any Apex fans out there, it's ALGS, right? ALGS, ALGS weekend. So he has been watching Apex pretty much all weekend and the finals are tonight. So we went grocery shopping earlier this morning and, you know, we got our weekly groceries, but we also got some take and bake pizzas that we can just bake. And so he can enjoy his ALGS, his Apex, and then I can read and we can just have like a very relaxed and chill Sunday. So those are my plans for the rest of the weekend. Make some good food, eat some good food, and read a good book. So I'm going to go get to reading and I will check back in with y'all tomorrow with another reading update. Hey friends, happy Tuesday. So I am now 30% of the way through First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston and I'm enjoying it. We are following our main character, Evie Porter, throughout this book and she has it all. She has the perfect boyfriend, she has a great job, she's got a nice cozy house in the suburbs, like a perfect life, but there's one catch. Evie Porter does not exist. So who is our protagonist and what are they doing and why are they pretending to be Evie Porter? So that's that one. I feel like that's going to be like all I want to give about this thriller, because I feel like with the direction it's going and just like the information that I'm constantly learning, and I'm only 30% of the way in, I just feel like I don't want to give more than that. I feel like especially for thrillers that are so twisty turny and you never know what's happening next, I think just a brief little blurb is good. So if that's intriguing, definitely check it out. I'm listening to the audiobook and I am enjoying that production. So that's my audiobook. For my physical book, I decided to pick up Rainbow Black by Maggie Thrash, and this one takes place in the present day and then also in the 1980s, because our main character, Lacey, is a teen, well, tween to teen girl growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, as her parents are in New Hampshire and they are running a very hippie child daycare. There are goats, and it's like on like a little farm, so it's a daycare for young children, and Lacey helps her parents out with this daycare, and it's a pretty normal, standard, kind of boring life until the satanic panic hits, and then Lacey's parents are thrown into jail because of accusations that are truly horrific but may or may not be true, because the satanic panic was mass hysteria spreading across the nation and there were a lot of false accusations. So Lacey's parents are accused of really heinous crimes, and all of this fever pitch comes to a head, and then now we're also following her in the present day. So we're following Lacey present day, dealing with the repercussions of the satanic panic and what happened during that period of time at her family's daycare. And I am not very far into this one at all, but I'm already very invested. The narration style of this one is very informative. It feels like Lacey is just sitting down and talking with you about the events, and I really like that. It's working really well for this story as Lacey is recounting her childhood and, you know, maybe things that may or may not have happened. So I'm intrigued. I find the whole like satanic panic and all of the hysteria that came out of that and just that whole snowball effect. I think the satanic panic is a super fascinating time in history, so I'm intrigued to read a fiction book about it. Late 80s, early 90s. I really tend to enjoy that time period in horror fiction, so I think I'm really gonna like this one. Again, I'm not too far into this one, so you know, very initial reactions. I think I'm really going to enjoy this one, but that's my physical book. My audiobook today, I have to go to the library and return some books. One of them may or may not be a little bit overdue, but that's okay. We're returning them all, and then I'm picking up some new books, but that's all I really have planned for today. I do have to work, but I work from home, so that's no big deal. I just have to figure out what time that I want to go to the library and do all those book exchanges. So that is going to be it for this clip. Just a short, sweet little reading update, because again, one book I feel like I can't really talk too much about because of the nature of the thriller, and then the other book I'm not very far in it at all, just like a handful of pages. So I will be working fun stuff, I know, but then after that going to the library and then reading. So I will check back in with y'all later with another reading update. Hey vlog, happy Thursday. This is definitely going to be a shorter vlog, which is okay. I just needed a little something in between like big projects of mine, because the themed reading vlogs, especially the one that's coming up either next week when you're watching this or the week after, have been such a big undertaking. So it's been nice to just relax this week and just read whatever. So unless something drastic changes this weekend, which typically it doesn't, I film more during the week than the weekend, it's gonna be a shorter vlog, and that's okay. The other day I did end up going to the library, returned some books, picked up some new books. I don't want to show a lot of them because a lot of them are for yet another surprise reading vlog, and that reading vlog will not be coming out until June, so that's something exciting to look forward to. A little bit of a secret TBR, but I can show you I also got Immortal Pleasures by V. Castro, and I'm so excited to read this one. I love V. Castro's work, and I just, first of all, the last vlog that you should should have seen was a vampire reading vlog, and I didn't get like a 5-star vampire book out of that one, which is unfortunate because typically when I film vampire reading vlogs, there's at least one that becomes a new favorite because I love vampire fiction. So kind of bummed that I got this a little bit too late to include it in that reading vlog, but I'm so excited to pick this one up. Maybe we'll pick it up this weekend. I'm so excited. I love V. Castro's work. I have heard this comped to the movie Queen of the Damned, so I really want to pick this up. V. Castro, I just feel like her writing style would work so well with that kind of story. So very excited about this one. Again, possibly a TBR disruptor for this weekend, but we'll have to see. I might also save it for June. I don't know. In terms of what I'm currently reading, my audiobook is going well. Don't really have anything new to report on that. I also am about 35% of the way through Rainbow Black, and just a warning if you go in to pick this up, because this is dark. This is really dark, and I don't know if I was fully expecting like the overall tone of this book. Don't get me wrong, I knew it was going to deal with a very dark subject matter because of, you know, the satanic panic and the allegations that this main character's parents like had put against them because of the satanic panic. That's dark stuff. So I was expecting, you know, a dark subject matter, but also just the surrounding culture and the things that are explored in Lacey's life other than her parents, like, and that trial. It's really dark all the way around. So I would just be warned if you go into this one, we get maybe 2 chapters. That's being generous. I feel like maybe only 1 chapter where, you know, Lacey's life is unspectacular and normal and quaint and idyllic and her living with her parents and everything's going fine. There's like 1 chapter of that, and then we get into the satanic panic and the trials and the just horrific situation that Lacey finds herself in with all of these people who are supposed to be advocating for her, really abusing her in a way, right? Because the thing about the satanic panic is the kids, you know, they weren't real confessions, and just the mind games that were played with these children so that they could elicit these answers to kind of further agendas. It's really hard to read about, and it's really hard to read about Lacey as like a tween. She's like 13, 14, I believe, throughout like this trial and this process, and it's a hard time already with your development, and then adding in all of this, she has her parents taken away from her. She can't speak to them for a really long time because she's trying to be protected from them by other well-meaning people who all think that they know what's best for Lacey, and then just seeing the different psychiatrists and psychologists and all of these people who are some of them are trying to help Lacey out of the goodness of their hearts. Some of them aren't really so much, and just seeing all of her trauma. This is a very traumatic period in her life, obviously, and just really reading all of that, right? Because I think it's one thing when you're reading about the satanic panic at a distance and you're understanding the things that happened and like the psychology, right, behind the ways that they extracted information from kids to pursue these trials. Like, that's horrifying, but reading it as history, it's, you know, you're a step removed from it. Lacey's not a step removed from it, and 100 or so pages in, it's just, your heart breaks for her. It's a hard read. So know that going in. I knew going in, right, that this was going to cover some dark subject matter, but I think especially like the beginning of this, Lacey is so conversational. I already mentioned that, but she's so conversational. She's talking to you like you guys are friends, and she's recounting stories to you, and she has like a lot of very witty and funny like observations about the world as well. So I think you're kind of lured into a sense of complacency at first, where you're like, okay, this is, you know, it could be like My Best Friend's Exorcism, for example. That's 80s themed horror that does deal with dark topics, but is very funny and light. This one kind of seems like it's going there, but then you realize like a lot of that is a coping mechanism for Lacey, because otherwise like this, it's so dark for her. So yeah, know that going in, very conversational. You're listening to the audiobook or reading the book, and you're enjoying her observations about life, and then these horrible things start happening, and just it's a lot. It's a lot, so know that going in, but I am enjoying it, but I probably will be reading this at a slower pace than I initially thought just because it's so dark. But that's really all I have in terms of a reading update. I'm gonna try and work a little bit more than I normally do today because tomorrow I have to take my car to a car appointment and I'm just sitting like in the waiting room while they work on my car. So I'm just anticipating that's going to be a large chunk of my day. So I will be bringing books while I'm waiting for my car to get worked on, but I'm gonna try and work a little bit more today to make up for sitting at a car dealership for a large period of time tomorrow. So yeah, it's gonna be a pretty boring day. I'm gonna be working a lot. I do anticipate reading some more. I think I am going to try and focus on my audiobook First Fly Wins just so that I can finish that one up. Although Rainbow Black, while it is dark, is very compelling, so I don't know. We'll get some reading in tonight for sure, but I will talk to y'all later, maybe tomorrow evening, with another reading update. Hey friends, happy Saturday. Yesterday was a very uneventful day because I ended up going to the car dealership and sitting there while my car was getting worked on for a number of hours, but the silver lining is that I did end up finishing Rainbow Black, and this one I'm seeing it being picked up a lot because it has a very intriguing premise and the cover is gorgeous and it sounds very good, and it is good. However, I am seeing this shelved a lot as thriller or horror or like a mystery. Even my library has it as like a mystery, but this to me feels more like a dark drama or a darker literary fiction, because I think if you go in expecting a thriller, expecting a lot of twists and turns and like action and a fast plot, I don't think you're going to find it here, as well as this has so many trigger warnings. This gets very dark, and I want people to go into it like having the right headspace, because I think if you don't, it's really going to mess you up, because this is a book I feel like you need to be prepared for. You know, I even said at the start of this vlog that I was excited. I love 80s and 90s horror, and I enjoy learning about the Satanic Panic as a period of history, and I knew what it was going into it, but I still was not prepared for everything that is in here. I'd say big trigger warnings. I mean, check Storygraph. They're excellent at including an entire list, because I'm sure like in my rapid fire things that I'm thinking of, there are even some that maybe I haven't thought of. So Storygraph has an amazing list of trigger warnings for every single book you could think of pretty much. This one deals heavily with abuse of all kinds, in particular child abuse. So if that's a no-go for you, don't pick this up. Emotional, physical, sexual abuse, like all of them are in here. There are horrible family dynamics. You know, our main characters get failed by the systems and the people who are supposed to protect them again and again and again, and it's a lot. And also this one feels very true to the time period. So specific terminology that is used is very accurate to the 80s and 90s. It's not what we'd use today. So know that going in. If you're a queer reader, that you might see a lot of terms in here that are just hard to read, and opinions from people who may even seem like good characters, and then they start talking about certain issues and you're like, oh my god, this is not okay, because, you know, it's in the 80s. The terms that were used, even the positive terms for people, were very different. In particular, there is I would say major character that is a trans girl, and the way that this trans girl gets talked about throughout this narrative can be very triggering, because this character is not talked about in a modern lens, and like the terms that are used and the way people talk about this character are very true to the time, but hard to read. So if those are triggers for you, just know that going in, this book feels very true to its time. It doesn't like kind of reinvent the time period to make it better than it was. So that can be very triggering. So know that going in, as well as this is just like a very pessimistic book, which I kind of felt like that was one of the things that I didn't enjoy about this so much, was that it was so one note obviously, horrible things happen to our main character. Not everyone in real life gets a happily ever after or just anything good happen in their life, but just the way this story was constructed as well. I felt like we had 3 parts to the story, and sometimes I felt like we missed a chapter that was kind of glossed over that I would have liked to see from the character's perspective. And we kind of got like in the next chapter, oh, and this happened and now we're doing this. I would have preferred to see that like on page. So this was incredibly well written. I can't say I enjoyed my time reading it because again, it was a hard and difficult read. It had a lot of very horrible things happening in it, as well as some of the pacing felt like a little off. I just felt like some chapters were missing, in particular from when Lacey is a child and then we rapidly move to her as an adult. Even though you know that's going to happen, you don't expect like a large portion of time to be like cut out in the way that it is. So some of that kind of impacted the way that I felt about certain character relationships, because I missed as a reader a whole chunk of time to see them and experience the change from character dynamics in one time period to the other. So yeah, overall really good read, very dark read, so just be prepared. Know that when you pick this up it's going to be very dark. It's definitely not like a bingeable book where you can sit down and read it all, at least in one setting, in my opinion, just because there's some points where you have to put it down. You're like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. So this was very good, very dark. Be prepared when you go in it, but it definitely was a very impactful reading experience to me. Moving on to my weekend reading plans, I'm still concurrently filming the other reading vlog, so that book is going to be taking up a lot of my time this weekend, but I do think I'm also going to pick up Immortal Pleasures by Castro because this one is just calling to me. I know I just got it this week. I'm so excited to pick this one up, and the book that I am reading for the other vlog is very chunky, so this one is shorter. I feel like they would be good books to read concurrently, and I'm so excited to pick up another anticipated vampire book. So I think this is what I'm going to be reading this weekend. Still listening to my audiobook, First July Winds. It's okay. It's not like gripping me in the way that I want a thriller to be. Like I want a thriller, I want to not be able to put it down, and I can for this one. Like I'm interested about the mysteries, but I'm not like itching to figure them out. So I think I'm about 50 to 60% of the way through First July Winds, and I'll be finishing that up this weekend as well, but it's definitely not one where I'm that intrigued to pick it up. I don't know if it's because I'm listening to it via audiobook and maybe like reading it physically, because I am a faster physical reader. Maybe that would have helped a little bit, but just right now it's not like what I'm excited about or prioritizing. So yeah, we'll be continuing on reading First July Winds and then also picking up Immortal Pleasures to wrap out this week's reading vlog. So I'm gonna go get to doing that, go hang out with my partner and my puppies, and I will talk to y'all later with another reading update. Hey friends, happy Monday. This weekend I managed to read about 70 pages of Immortal Pleasures by Castro, and I am really enjoying this one so far. So much so that I do wish that I had included this one in my vampire reading vlog, because I just feel like this is a vampire book. This is a vampire book. This is everything that I am intrigued about in a vampire book. But that's okay. We're reading it for this vlog and we are absolutely enjoying it. We as an I. I don't know why I went into the royal we there, but there you have it. I'm enjoying this a whole lot. We are following our main character, Malinali. Malinali has been living for centuries. When she was a human, she was actually known as La Malinche, who was the interpreter for Cortez, because she worked for Hernan Cortez in basically colonizing and destroying her people. Her name has kind of gone down in history as a traitor. Luckily, the narrative around this woman has changed, because how much choice did she actually have in translating for Cortez? So that is Malinali's backstory. She did not have the best life as a human, but she was transformed into a vampire, and now she is making her living as an immortal. She goes to private collectors and museums and convinces them politely or not so politely immediately to give back artifacts that they have in their collections to the people that the artifacts were stolen from, which is so cool. So that has been what Molly Nolly has been doing with her immortal lifespan, is collecting these artifacts and bringing them back to her people and other peoples that they were stolen from. Now she wants something a little bit more. She craves something a little bit more out of her immortal existence. She wants like a genuine connection with someone. Obviously, due to her backstory as a forced translator for Cortez, but even during the time period that she was alive, she did not have the chance to actually make a real connection with someone. She didn't have a chance to fall in love and like pursue passion as something to be enjoyed for her as a woman. Instead, it was like an obligation and something she was forced to do. So now she's a vampire and she wants to find pleasure and love, very human things that she was denied as a human. So at the start of the story, she travels to Dublin to reclaim 2 Aztec skulls and meets a horror writer who she instantly has a connection with. So she's starting to make a connection and fall in love and just experience pleasure for pleasure's sake and for her pleasure as a woman for the very first time. With this horror writer who, even though he's human, she suspects that he maybe could be able to love her for her and all of the wonderful, monstrous, vampiric creature that she is. However, there is also a dark creature who may or may not be like her, stalking the streets of Dublin, who also may have a sinister connection to her past. So all 3 of these characters are going to be entwined as Molly Nolly searches for, first of all, to get those Aztec skulls back, and then to kind of seek out, as the title says, some immortal pleasures, because even though she may be technically undead, she still wants to live life and experience pleasure. So I'm loving this one. I'm loving this one. I can totally see where this has been comped to Queen of the Damned, just in terms of like vibe, I guess, and ambiance almost, because this is a very different story, but definitely in terms of our like female protagonist and the way that being a vampire has given her new agency that she never had in her life as a mortal woman, and just seeking out that agency and pleasure and desire and just be herself and live her life on her terms. I think those themes are very similar, so I am really enjoying this one. I initially wanted to end out this vlog today, but I think I want to read the rest of this and give y'all my thoughts. So that is what I'm going to do for the rest of this vlog. I'm going to focus on this V. Castro book. I know I'd mentioned throughout the vlog First Fly Wins as being my audiobook. I got to like 70% of the way through this one, and then my Libby hold expired, so I am back on the waiting list for that one, so there won't be a update for that book, at least in this vlog. I know I had been talking about that one, so I wanted to make sure that I gave the reason why I will not be talking about it anymore in the vlog. I was enjoying it, but my hold from the library expired, so I am gonna have to wait another couple weeks to finish that one up. So today I will be reading Immortal Pleasures. I'm gonna go get back to reading, and I will check back in later with another reading update. So it is now time to wrap up this vlog. I did finish Immortal Pleasures by V. Castro, and I'm gonna be quite honest, I was editing a lot of my vlog together today and I'm kind of regretting mood reading for a week, which is not typical of me at all. Normally I mood read all the time, but I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the books that I chose for this week or just the fact that like my themed vlogs, a lot of them have been going really well. But either way, in a strange turn of events for me, a mood reader, I want to go back to doing, I think, themed vlogs next week. I want to go back to focusing on my themed vlogs because this week I didn't hate anything that I read, but all of the books that I read, like none of them were 5 stars, none of them were books that I absolutely loved, which may be a shocker because I know the last time I talked about this book I said it was everything I wanted in a vampire novel, and while that was kind of true, and it's true about a lot of this book, The parts about this book that I loved, I loved. The parts that I didn't love about this book, the parts that I hated even, were I really didn't like them. So this was very polarizing. I think it's going to be a very polarizing book, and I would definitely say this counts as more of an erotic horror. The parts that I loved about this one, I loved our main character. I loved Molly Nolly as she explored being a vampire and having her own agency and getting to live a life for herself, especially when she was born in an era where she was taken advantage of and she just didn't have the agency that she does as a combination of not only her vampire powers but being a woman in the present day as opposed to when she was originally born and lived as a human. So I enjoyed those aspects. I enjoyed the aspects of we get to see like several historical figures in here, not only our main character but several other, they're like little cameos in here, and there are other characters where I feel like just based on the names we can kind of guess at potentially who they could have been in history, which is cool, as well as just getting little snippets of Molly Nolly's life. Like she went to Woodstock, I love that for her. I love that she went to Woodstock because her human life was so tragic and traumatic. So I enjoyed Molly's journey as a human and as a vampire. I thought those were so well done. In particular, what I've noticed about V. Castro's work and what I love is that she takes these very polarizing figures, or maybe figures that have been kind of painted with a very misogynistic brush in terms of history. Like for this one, we are following La Malinche as well as The Haunting of Alejandra. We followed the tale of La Llorona and giving a literary and feminist voice to either characters in folklore or real people who have just not had the best time in terms of history. History is painted a lot of times through the eyes of the victors as well as a very misogynistic lens as well. So I love that about V. Castro's work. There's a lot to love in here. I really enjoyed seeing Molly's journey. I enjoyed seeing Molly in the present as she has this really cool job of taking back artifacts from the people who stole them and bringing them back to her people and other cultures who are disenfranchised. So I love all of that. The things that I didn't like so much, I felt like the ending was so rapid fire. I think it takes place, like the climax, the main action, all of that, I think it takes place within maybe 10 pages. So that was a little bit of a letdown because this is very slow to start, and I think this book could have easily benefited by another couple hundred pages even. I would have loved just diving into Molly's immortal life like that. So the ending was very sudden, very abrupt, as well as this book had so many smutty scenes, and I do not inherently hate spicy scenes, or I think, you know, there could be a place for them within horror. That's not an automatic deal breaker to me, but the first half of this, there's like some very constant scenes and they don't add too much to the overall story. Like I could see the significance of maybe having one or two in there, but there are multiple extended drawn out scenes that were not written in like a very appealing way either. So like they were very bizarre, very jarring, and they took up, like, this is not even 300 pages and they took up a lot of page count. And while I love that for a main character, because part of this is her discovering her agency and discovering pleasure and lust and all of the things that she could not afford to have as a human, that's great. Just the way that the scenes were written and the frequency of them in the first half is such an abrupt like tonal shift, because we'll dive into a very hardcore smutty scene for multiple pages and then we'll flip back into like a horrific time in Molly's past, and the juxtaposition of that was just very jarring. And just the scenes, if you've read this one in particular, there's a scene regarding butter that is wild. So while I mentioned I loved a lot about this, it just felt very discombobulated. Again, like the erotic components of this really threw me off in particular because it just seems so constant for the first half of the book, and then like it very much switches tonally in the second half, and just the ending really threw me off as well. But I loved the vampire like journey in this, and I loved Molly as a vampire in the present day as she's making a living, like doing a really cool job and meeting other vampires and exploring what being a vampire means to different people depending on how disenfranchised you were. as a human, and, you know, being a vampire and getting to explore different types of freedom. All of that was so cool, but this just felt so discombobulated to me. So again, I think this is one, maybe I had too high of expectations for it, but again, the parts that I loved. The parts that I didn't care for, I really didn't care for. So this was such an uneven reading experience. It's frustrating. It's definitely my least favorite, I think, by V. Castro, which I was not anticipating because of my love for V. Castro and my love for vampires. So unfortunately, it's just a weird reading experience. Not a bad one, and there's a lot to love in here. I'm happy to have read it, and I will absolutely keep reading V. Castro, but this was a bizarre reading experience and not in the way that I wanted. So all of that leads me to the end of this vlog and be really thinking, maybe not mood reading. I don't know. It's not mood reading. It's definitely not mood reading. I understand that, but just all three of the books, like the thriller that I read was okay. There was nothing bad about it, but it wasn't like edge of your seat thrilling. And, you know, I let the hold on it lapse before I finished it. So, you know, that probably means that it's not going to be a 5-star read for me when I get that back on my Libby account. And then the two physical books that I read, there were a lot to love about it. Both Rainbow Black and Immortal Pleasures had aspects that I really enjoyed, and both of them were such highly anticipated reads. And I think that might be part of it as well, because I've really been prioritizing like my most anticipated reads. I make a video every month, my most anticipated, and then I try and read them like within a month. So I think maybe some of my own hype for some of these books, like I'm so excited about them. I think that maybe that could potentially be influencing like my reading experience, like maybe me having my expectations set way too high, and then just whenever they don't meet them, obviously that is not the best reading experience. I don't know what it is, but I normally have a better time mood reading than I did this week. So I think next week we are going to focus on themed vlogs again and see where I get with that. Potentially I'm also thinking in June maybe focusing more on backlist reads as opposed to like the biggest buzziest 2024 releases, and see if maybe not having such high expectations and seeing all these hype for the books that I'm reading, like diving into some of my physical TBR or just backlist books that I have like on my Storygraph TBR, maybe some of that could impact this weird feeling that I have, because I'm not in a reading slump, but I feel like if I keep on reading books that I'm so hyped for and so excited for, and they're not 5 stars or even 4 stars, that I'm gonna find myself in a reading slump quite quickly. So I think for June, we're going to focus more on backlist books, as well as keep on structuring my weekly reading with themed TBRs, and we'll see how that goes. So thank y'all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe to my channel for all of the bookish, cozy gaming, and horror content. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!